The problem with remakes is that everyone expects something different. Everyone imagines a different thing. Some people will want radical changes to justify the game being remade. Some don't want any changes so that it maintains what it was, and some just want quality of life improvements, like better graphics and tighter controls. The issue is that no matter what changes are done to a game, it's very likely that some people will be disappointed in it to a degree. There are very few remakes of things that are already good that result in something that's much, much better, or even of equal quality. All you can do is hope that what comes out is good in its own way. I want different things from the remakes too, but my reasoning behind each one is a little different. I'm not particularly optimistic about the Silent Hill 2 remake, mostly because of its legacy and the people chosen to do it. I don't have a great deal of faith in Bloober Team, and haven't really enjoyed any of the horror games from their library. The games aren't necessarily bad, but they often feel like they missed the mark with many things, and I'm not confident that even with Akira Yamaoka and Masahiro Ito on board to steer them, that they'll be able to make something that does the legacy of the game justice, or is good in its own way. Personally, the problem for me is that Silent Hill 2 is literally one of the best horror games ever made. Whilst it's not my favourite in the series, there's a lot of things about it that are undeniable in terms of quality, execution, and how well it achieved what it set out to do, to the point where people still make analysis and documentary-style videos on it nowadays, and it's still revered as one of the best, after all these years. Its imitators have not surpassed it. In my opinion, I would rather the game was remastered, so that people can pick it up on a modern system without having to buy an old PlayStation 2 copy or download a ROM to emulate it. The best way to play it now is the Silent Hill 2 Enhanced Edition. It's basically the remaster the game deserves, put together lovingly by fans of the game. But the problem is that Konami would never pick it up and sell it. Remasters generally sell less than remakes, as they promise less too, which means that they're less interesting for both consumers and publishers, and therefore make less money. And sadly, a lot of big budget developments are centered around how much money they'd make over artistic vision. For this game though, I think its preservation of what it is more important than another spin on the same formula. A lot of later Silent Hill games were desperately trying to recreate the unique feeling of the earlier entries with different stories, and many of them are interesting, but in my opinion they just don't compare in one way or another. We've already seen, based on the trailer, that the Silent Hill 2 remake is not going to be a straight-up remake, and there's a lot of small changes, from the more gentle, somber tone of the music, to the redesigned and pained expression on James Sunderland's face, and his less awkward and more tortured-sounding voice. These things are going to make a big difference on how the game feels. In my honest opinion, from what I've seen so far, it's more of a caricature of Silent Hill 2 than a different take, and this heavy-handed approach is something that I didn't want to see in the game. But I get that other people will be excited for it. Based on the poll I did last year, it seems most people are enthusiastic, and I really hope they get what they want. My opinion is already jaded, since I'm lucky enough to be able to play the originals of these games whenever I want, and as disappointing as this may sound, I think that whatever is released will probably be underwhelming to me. I don't have enough faith in Bloober Team to refine or enhance or even present something that's different but also interesting, and my issues stem from how good the original game is already, and the things that Bloober Team have made in the past. Dead Space promises to be probably the most inoffensive of the remakes, with it being just a graphical changes and gameplay improvements. I can see people being both enthusiastic or unenthusiastic about it. It may stick to the original too much to warrant people bothering, but if it's just a straight graphical upgrade, then it's an excellent way to experience the game, even if the original Dead Space is available on PC and Xbox. For its age, the original game still looks pretty good, and I personally didn't play it very long ago. Even the Xbox 360 version of the game looks pretty good to me, but I don't care a great deal about graphics. I really don't have a lot to say on this one. Again, I hope it's like it seems, and the people who want it get what they want. The most promising game being remade, in my opinion, is Resident Evil 4. I'm far more interested in seeing a spookier version of a game that I never found frightening than I am a straight up remake or yet another remaster, and based on what I've seen in the trailer, there's a lot of potential for them to really make a more atmospheric and dark game. The original version of the game shown in the 2003 E3 demo had a lot more horror elements than what we got in the final game, and from the trailer it looks like Resident Evil Village, which had great scenery but lackluster atmosphere and scares, which I'm hoping that Resident Evil 4 can capitalise on with its events and unique enemies to make something really great. As much as I like the original, and this will never replace it, the remake promises to take the setting and story of the original and present it in a more horror-focused way, which I'm all for. The elements of Resident Evil 4 have always been there, but it's always felt like they were just trapped in an action game. My lack of enthusiasm for Silent Hill 2 and my optimism for Resident Evil 4 sort of pivots on how I think there's room for improvement in terms of horror for RE4, and how Silent Hill 2 is already as good as it's going to get. Whilst I have doubts that Bloober Team can create something worthwhile, I believe that Capcom can do it. I've had a lot of reservations about Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes because I think the originals are more frightening experiences thanks to the tank controls and bigger focus on audio, but Resident Evil 4 has always been more about having fun shooting infected villagers and cultists, so to have it be effectively repurposed makes it the most interesting remake by far. I want to end by saying that I would always rather have something new than a newer version of something I've already seen. I think games should just be remastered, ported or preserved rather than remade, and developers should focus on something new. But the landscape of big budget games doesn't lean towards that. The unfortunate thing is that horror has diminishing returns, and if its beats are mimicked perfectly you can argue that it's nothing new, and like seeing your favourite movie over and over, you start to learn the lines. If I was an imitation, a perfect imitation, how would you know it was really me? Thank you for watching. Next time I'm going to be making a video about cosmic horror in video games. Going up on the side channel the next few weeks are a few indie horror games that I've played, including the second installment of Fears to Fathom, which was a huge improvement over the first. Up on Patreon in the future are reviews of Bloodborne, the Callisto Protocol, and a game called Prognostic. Thank you to the patrons, and good night.